Hi everyone, welcome to Rike Sports and our Formula One show with Ollie from F1 Global. Hi Ollie, how are you?
I'm good, mate. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Happy New Year to you and all our viewers.
Happy New Year, everybody. Another day, another lockdown.
Yeah, it's really difficult times at the moment. So yeah, first of all, let's take a look at the F1 news. So talking about the lockdown and this whole coronavirus situation, it's affected the Formula One calendar. As we know, the season was meant to get underway in Australia, but that race has been postponed now to the third last race of the season. It's going to be in November, and they're now going to start in Bahrain. There's the first race on the 28th of March. They've also cancelled the Chinese Grand Prix. There's no word of when that race is going to take place, if it's going to take place this season. They have added the Imola Grand Prix. So yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm expecting more changes to come. Imola, I'm not too fussed about really. I didn't think the race was that good there last season. I think people were hyping it up because they remember, races from the 2000s and the 90s that were good. So I'm not too fussed about that. Apparently, Portimao in Portugal could be coming back instead of Vietnam. So fingers crossed, 'cause that was an amazing track. But yeah, we'll just wait and see, I guess. I think more changes are going to come. This is a crazy year we've had. It's going to be another crazy year. I literally just read something on Twitter that said about rumours that they're going to delay the technical changes another year.
Hmm.
So maybe we may see these cars again for another year. So, I mean, who knows what could happen. What are your thoughts on Imola coming back? I know you're a bit indifferent about it.
Yeah, so there's other tracks I'd prefer. Turkey would be one of the first ones I'd prefer if I had to choose from some of the tracks from last season. But yeah, as you said, the Portuguese track out there was amazing as well. But yeah, like you say, it's a difficult one. Like with this current situation, you can't plan really what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, let alone what's going to happen in the next few months and later in the season. So there's a big calendar of 23 races. So as we were speaking about before, like you normally need 17 races, isn't it, for
Mm.
a world championship to go ahead and be completed. So they got that leeway there. There's so many races, so they do lose some races, and they can't replace them all. There is that leeway there, but yeah, it's going to be one of them. We'll see how it goes. You know, we'll be taking it on a race by race basis with the way the situation is all around the world. But yeah, some other news as well from our last show together was that Perez has been confirmed as a new Red Bull driver, replacing Alex Albon. So I know you're a big fan of Alex. So what were you
Heartbroken,
about?
heartbroken, heartbroken,
Oh,
but understandable. I mean, we spoke about it back in December, and it was like, look, it's 90% there. I think we said, and then he signed the contract, or at least signed the agreement at Abu Dhabi. It looks like some people did some internet sleuthing. The curtains were the same. He had the same clothes on. There was a picture taken. So it's the right move for Red Bull. It's the right move for Sergio Perez. He deserves to stay in the sport. He signed a 1-year deal, so maybe we'll see him somewhere else. You never know. He's got a lot of sponsorship backing. But I'm pretty certain we'll see Albon in a race car next season. COVID's still around. We've seen some of the drivers have caught it. Norris has had it. I won't be surprised if we see more get it over the next 12 months. And, Red Bull have said they'll use Albon as a reserve for AlphaTauri and Red Bull, but they'll consider loaning him out. So, when he's not racing DTM, which is what he's sort of going to be car sharing with Liam Lawson, who's a Red Bull junior. So, yeah, I think we'll see him again next season. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think not a lot else is really news at the moment. A lot of rumours, but a big rumour is Hamilton's contract. So, what are the latest on that? Because I know you know more than me about this now. Like I've got the wrong sources.
no, really. So I've just seen what the news was saying that like there's a dispute over the length of the contract. Hamilton's wanting a 3-year contract, whereas Mercedes are looking to offer him a 1-year deal. I'm not sure how true that is because we know with the media, not always what's in the media is the truth. So we don't know for sure. But that's the rumor going around. Have you heard anything?
No, I think the only thing different is money's holding it up. But he's, world champ, 7-time world champion, 92, 3 race wins, a million race wins, and a million pole positions. So as far as I'm concerned, he's in his rights to ask as much money as he wants. I think if they don't sign him, which they will, that'd be ridiculous too. But I think we'll see something by the end of the month, because teams are going to be showing their cars off and the liveries off in February and March before testing. So they'd be silly not to. So yeah, I think we'll see something sooner rather than later. Although I think I've said that for the last 3 podcasts. So maybe don't take me verbatim on that, please.
Yeah, it should get done. Should get done. And yeah, looking forward to the season. As you're saying, testing is not too far away now as well. I mean, yeah, that first race, 28th of March. Looking forward to that. So, as we were saying at the start of the show, we're going to do a look back now on one of the best seasons, in our opinion, from the past. And we're discussing this. The one that we both said was the 2007 season. We wanted to start with that as a review to do. And just looking back on it now, the past couple of days, obviously making notes and reminding myself about it all, that to me, really, like, what a season. Really, it was just unbelievable. So I went through a period. So I've been watching Formula One since the mid 90s. And I watched Damon Hill first up against Michael Schumacher back then. And it was very competitive. You have the likes of Jack Villeneuve as well that came into it. And it was really competitive and it was good to watch. Then you had that dominance era of Michael Schumacher, where like through the 2000s, where kind of got a little bit boring, you would say. Some people are saying it's kind of like that now with Lewis as well. You know, they want to see more competition. Alonso did come and challenge Schumacher, as we know, and won the world championship a couple of times. So that was good then. But then the season that we really saw the most in the history of a sport from in my lifetime, where we saw the most competition, was that 2007 season, where we had 2 really fast cars, the McLarens and the Ferraris, really fast, really close between them, and they had 4 great drivers. McLaren had, as we know, that season was a big change as well. So McLaren had lost Kimi Räikkönen. He had gone from them to Ferrari and to team up with Felipe Massa. And McLaren had brought in Fernando Alonso from Renault. And to join him as his teammate, they brought in Lewis Hamilton, who was a rookie. No one had really heard of him at that time. I hadn't heard of him. And we had 4 great drivers who produced one hell of a season. And there was so much controversy in that season as well, and so much to look back on. What was your thoughts on that season?
It was a mad season, wasn't it? I mean, between that, maybe the season just gone, and it was 2012 or 2013. I think those 3 seasons really stick out. But yeah, I mean, a rookie coming in, losing the title by 1 point, on the podium for 9 races in a row, which was just mad. I mean, that's just insane. And then you had, you know, the other stuff going on as well. You know, the inter-team battle with Alonso. You had Spygate. You had Massa, who was actually really challenging, and it was before his accident in 2009, so when he was really, really good. Raikkonen obviously winning, but looking like he wouldn't win it. And then, you know, you think further down the pack, you've got like BMW Sauber showing who they are, Kubica coming onto the field a little bit more, Heikki Kovalainen making waves, so, and Sebastian Vettel coming in. So yeah, it was a mad season that has set up a lot of seasons since then. I think, you know, without 2007 happening, we wouldn't have, you know, 2008 to 2020 happening like in the way that it has. You know, I think it's iconic for that. You know, Alonso left, went back to Renault. You know, Vettel obviously went to Toro Rosso and started his career. You know, we had teams sort of leave after this as well. You know, it was the start of the financial crash was the year after, and so yeah, it was a real mad season from that perspective, but definitely an amazing one.
Yeah, so if we start with the first race of the season, it was dominated by Ferrari at that time. Ferrari's Kimi Räikkönen on his debut took pole position, and he completed the hat-trick there of winning the race and taking the fastest lap. He won it by 7 seconds from Alonso, who had started in second place and finished in second place. Hamilton had qualified in 4th on his first race, and he managed to get onto the podium. So that was a really good performance from Lewis back then. You know, first race as a rookie to get on the podium. And it was an early sign for us all to see of his talent. And we know how good he's gone on to be and how successful a career he's had. So, yeah, what was your thoughts of watching him in that first race?
I mean, it was the first corner that did it for me. And I think for a lot of people, you know, he did this mega move on Alonso. Yes, Alonso got the position back eventually through pit stops, but just he launched it around the outside on the first corner, and a Melbourne track that isn't really too good for overtaking, actually. So it was insane seeing that start. You know, I think it gave an idea for everybody he was the real deal, and then bringing it home for a podium place, you know, definitely secured that idea. But, you know, amazing result from Raikkonen as well. Got the hat-trick, pole, fastest lap and the win. And we saw quite a few hat-tricks actually throughout the season. So he's definitely set that tone. but yeah, it was a really good start to the season. It made me miss smaller cars, like watching these highlights back.
Yeah.
They are boats nowadays. It's they're too big in my opinion. But yeah, it was great to see Hamilton come in and almost take the world by storm. We're saying he was young; he was 22. Norris was 19. Verstappen was 17 when he started. So it was mad seeing the 22-year-old in the car. But nowadays it's like he's 22, whatever. It's kind of old nowadays for an F1 driver, it seems. But yeah, crazy start to the season.
Yeah, I saw something the other day about the youngest pairings together, and yeah, you saw that as well. So yeah, it's like
it's on F1 website, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was. So yeah, like Max at 17. Wow, young ages they're starting at nowadays. But yeah, okay. So on to the second race then. So Ferrari again had the outright speed in that one with taking pole. This time Massa took pole. Kimi was third. However, in the race, they both had poor start, you would say, as Alonso jumped ahead of Massa and Kimi jumped ahead of, Hamilton jumped ahead of Kimi, and Hamilton actually then managed to get ahead of Massa as well to get up into second place. And then he really showed another side of his driving, which I go on a lot about now, which he had it from back then. His defensive driving, where when he's put under pressure, he doesn't make mistakes. He had it from back then. He was put under a lot of pressure by Massa. Massa eventually went wide trying to pass him, couldn't get it done. Then Raikkonen had a go to try to pass him as well. And again, he couldn't get it done. And Lewis done really well there to hold on to the second position. Alonso ended up winning the race quite comfortably, but it was really to show us early in his career that he already had this skill where under extreme pressure, he can drive really well defensively, doesn't make errors. We spoke about the errors Bottas was making this season, and Bottas is an experienced driver now, but Lewis back then was new to Formula One. And even back then, he was showing his qualities in that situation under intense pressure. You remember how that went?
Yeah, no, actually, I I didn't remember this race at all. But yeah, I watched some of the highlights of it. I was 13 when this season came out, just to make you feel old. But
old man.
Yeah, it was. I watched the highlights, and it was an amazing masterclass from defensive driving. And amazing race from Alonso as well. We've got to give credit there. He won it by a good way. But I just missed the track. I mean, Malaysia's an amazing track. If we could, bin Sochi or bin, Barcelona, and get Sepang back in, get Malaysia back in, that'd be perfect. Because that's such good track, and produce some brilliant races. So maybe one day, hopefully in the future, it will come back. But money talks. We know that with Formula One, so we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's been sad not to see that for the last few years. It's really one of the best tracks out there. The drivers all love it. I love playing it in the Formula One game. It was a fun track to play of a Formula One game back in the day. But yeah, so that takes us on to the third race, which was a masterclass by Massa. Out in Bahrain, he took pole, won the race, and got the fastest lap. Done really well out there. And he followed it up in the Spanish Grand Prix, doing the same thing. Got the hat-trick again. And that was looking good for him at that point. It was early days in the championship, but it was Hamilton at that point that was leading the championship. Kimi had a couple of disappointing races. So unfortunately for him, he had a retirement, not due to any fault of his own. It was a mechanical issue. He had an electrical problem in the previous race. But in this race, it was his mistake that caused him to finish down. He started down the race in 16th and finished in 8th. So really poor couple of races for Kimi back then. And that put him on the back foot in the championship. And as I was saying, at that point, very early in the season, but it was Lewis Hamilton leading the championship. That took him on to the Monaco Grand Prix. And this is where we had some of the first controversy of the season. So really mad one. And when I was reading this again, and it was 13 years ago. So you'd kind of forget this even happened. But when I was reading it, I was like, really, this happened? And yeah, it did happen. So 6 days before the race, Ferrari employee Nigel Stepney tried to sabotage Kimi Raikkonen and Felipe Massa's cars when a mysterious powder was found in the fuel tank of Raikkonen and Massa's car. The parts were replaced before the race, and the powder was sent to the police to be examined. Stepney was reportedly angry with Ferrari for not being promoted to technical director after Ross Brawn had left the team the previous season. So I know obviously you were very young back then, and so it'd be hard for you to remember as well. It was hard for me to remember this sort of incident because it's just like crazy. But yeah, do you remember it?
I don't remember that at all, but it was during the Bernie Ecclestone era, so it weirdly doesn't surprise me. But no, I don't remember that. But how mad is that? Like, trying to sabotage your own team. That's not how you get a job promotion. Come on, Nigel. Oh, mad. And then who would hire him after? Oh, it's just so strange, wasn't it?
Yeah,
What a weird thing to do.
it was really crazy. So onto that race, and it was a McLaren that this time had the fastest package. Their car was really suited to Monaco with the slow and tight corners, and it was Alonso Hamilton that were 1-2 in qualifying, and they finished the race in that order too. It was a poor weekend for Ferrari. They didn't perform well at all. Massa managed to get into third and keep third place after the race, but Kimi had another poor weekend and really dropping more points again. So not looking good there at that point for Ferrari. But in the next race, they went to Canada, and again, McLaren looked to have a faster package. And this race will go down in history for being the first race that Lewis Hamilton won. It was his first pole position, and it was one hell of a race. So many incidents happened. Your thoughts on this one?
It was a brilliant race. I mean, Hamilton masterclass, like we was almost used to seeing, but wouldn't have expected from a young driver back then, especially in a big team with big rivals, Massa, Alonso, Raikkonen. But, it was almost a perfect weekend for Hamilton, actually. Alonso nearly ran out of fuel and then had to pit when the pit lane was closed, dropped him down to 7th after a penalty. And he also got overtaken by Super Aguri, which was insane as a big Super Aguri fan back then. And then Raikkonen got 5th, and Massa was disqualified for leaving the pit lane when he shouldn't have, alongside Fisichella. So, yeah, it really set the tone. And Hamilton is amazing in Canada. We've seen that, and yeah, he seems to love North America. And this race and then the next race definitely showed that. But I think a thing people would have seen a lot of this race is obviously the big Kubica crash, and that crash led on to us getting to see a future 4-time world champion have his first taste of Formula One in the next race. So, yeah, this race was huge, actually, like this season, in setting up what would happen in the future with the sport.
Yeah, for sure. So as you're saying, for Lewis, really amazing performance. He was on pole, so he'll be nervous. First time he's been on pole, and then to have that much chaos going on behind him, we saw so many incidents with safety cars. As you're saying, the incident with Alonso and Rosberg, they nearly ran out of fuel, so they had to go in the pit lane, even though the pit lane was closed, to get the penalties. And then with Massa and Fisichella, they drove out the pit lane when the red light was on, and they ended up getting disqualified. And it was just a chaotic race all around. And Lewis done so well there, and as we know, he's gone on to have so many wins. Like, it's going to be well over 100 by the end of next season, and yeah, amazing. And he took that confidence into the next race. So, like I say, it's always important. He was obviously a confident driver. He knew in his abilities, but to get that first win is really important. And he took that confidence into the next race in Indianapolis, got pole there, won the race too. He was under extreme pressure from Alonso in that race. It was a point they were side by side going down the street, but he done well to hold him off, win the race, really important for him. And again, Ferrari were behind the McLarens there, so it was now 3 races in a row that were behind them, and it was really important for them to bounce back. So going up to the next race, it was in France, and Ferrari did bounce back there with Massa taking pole, and Kimi was 3rd. In qualifying, Lewis was 2nd, Alonso was 4th. It was down in 10th, actually, sorry, Alonso in that race. He had some mechanical issues. And then in the race itself, Massa kept the lead at the start, but Kimi managed to overtake Lewis to get 2nd. And then back then, it was really important to be able to look after your tyres in terms of, instead of an undercut, but overcut. And Kimi done that to him by pitting a couple of laps later, took the lead from Massa and won the race, which then took us to the next race, which was in Silverstone, the British Grand Prix. And this again was a very important race in the career of Lewis Hamilton because it was his first race at home, and he took pole.
You remember? Yeah, amazing lap. Amazing lap. The wall of noise from the fans as well when he crossed the line and secured P1. It was an insane lap. And you talk about pressure. He handled it perfectly, and he's done that time and time again. We've seen that obviously this season. So didn't get the result he wanted in the race. Raikkonen obviously got the win. He actually finished down in 3rd. He finished in 3rd, with Alonso getting 2nd. So it wasn't the best weekend for him, actually, but still a really solid result, and the 9th podium in a row for him. And that's, just unbelievable, especially for a rookie. So, yeah, what a season so far he's had.
Yeah, for sure. In that race as well, he was unlucky because there was a bit of a small error by the mechanical crew, the pit crew, that caused him to be delayed. So he ended up coming out behind Raikkonen, but the Ferrari seemed a little bit faster at the track. So, it seemed like Kimi was the favourite to get the win, and he did get the win that day. So that obviously was a good couple of races for Ferrari, for Kimi to close the gap down on the McLarens. And then there was one more race before the summer break, and that was a cracker. That was the European Grand Prix. And I'm sure you remember what a chaotic race this was.
The maddest race, I think, or one of the maddest, most surprising races we've seen. We had so many cars in the gravel trap at turn one. They were just sliding off the track because of the rain. We had an Etihad Alder Spiker F1 team car leading the race for a couple of laps. Marcus Winkelhock, who raced in one race, came in just before the start, put wets on, everybody else was on inters, and just held on to the lead for a couple of laps. And unfortunately, it was red flagged because of the rain, which meant, he did get overtaken and had to retire. But for your F1 debut in a car that is really slow, like at the back of the grid, really slow, to be leading the race, and having McLarens and Ferraris in your windows was just insane. But, this really opened up the championship, actually. Lewis and Kimi both didn't score. Hamilton went in the gravel trap but kept his engine running, but got a penalty, so it dropped him out of the points. Finished 9th. Alonso got the win and Massa got 2nd, with Mark Webber in the Red Bull picking up a podium. So, whereas we'd seen races earlier in the season sort of switch it a little bit for those top 4, this one sort of reverted it back. So, there was no point really this season where you saw anyone really grab hold of the championship lead. Just purely because of races like this. And then, it was just a mad race. I can't think of another wet race like that. I know we had the rain earlier, rain in 2020 season, but this was on another level. So, sure. Definitely watch the highlights of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so in terms of the championship at that point, going into the summer break, Lewis was leading. He was on 70 points. Alonso was behind him by 2 points on 68. Massa was in 3rd on 59 points, and Kimi was in 4th on 52. So a bit of a lead for the McLarens over the Ferraris, but it was still quite tight. And it was quite unlucky for Kimi at that point because he had won the most races, but he had some reliability issues, as we said. So he was still looking like he was going to have a good second half of the season. But, at that point, it was very difficult to call who's going to go on and win the championship. As I was saying, it was so tight between the 4 drivers throughout, as you're saying. It was never where anyone really grabbed hold of a lead and had established a really big lead. Up until towards the end, we'll go into that, obviously, that there was quite a big lead for someone going into the last couple of races. But we'll go into that at the end. So, the first race now after the summer break was the Hungarian Grand Prix. And it was a difficult one to tell who had the fastest package, but it became clear that McLaren did. And this was crazy because this is when we first saw the heated battle between Alonso and Hamilton. So up until then, we never really saw them have too much of a clash, but this time, this is where it really became really heated. So the incident was that Alonso was in his pit box. They were keeping him stationary, looking for a gap to let him out. So their plan was to keep him stationary for 20 seconds. However, when they told him to go, he decided he didn't want to go. He stayed stationary for a further 10 seconds. Lewis, in the meantime, was behind him, stacked up, ready to go, and get his tyres changed and get refueled. So by Alonso delaying him by these 10 seconds, it meant that Lewis missed out on doing his final lap in qualifying, which then meant Alonso managed to secure pole position. However, stewards decided to look into the incident, and they felt that Alonso done something that was against the rules, and they gave him a 5-place grid penalty. And they also said McLaren would be eligible to score any constructors' points in that race. As it turned out, McLaren were not able to score any points all season in the constructors' championship. As we know, there was the whole Spygate thing, and that's another crazy controversy that happened. But so this was the first time we've really seen Lewis and Alonso clash. You remember how that went? One thing as well, that because, Ron Dennis was obviously in the middle and he was trying to sort things out, and he was very heated with him and Alonso's trainer at one point, and there was a whole load of things going on. And Alonso's defense was that he was upset with Hamilton because the McLarens gave him orders to let him past him earlier in the qualifying, to let Alonso go ahead during the burning fuel phase of that race. Of that qualifying session. So, it was a crazy time. What do you remember of that incident?
Yeah, I just remember that sort of, I think it was Ted Allen on the commentary, sort of just saying, like, he's staying still, he's not moving, is this a tactic, blah, 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 like the commentary being mad. And yeah, that was definitely the first signs of this relationship is not good. Alonso obviously came in thinking he was going to be number one, and he had every right to. He had number one on his car. He was the reigning double world champion. There was no thinking that he would be anything else. So, yeah, I mean, Hamilton partly was to blame, you could say, in that regard. Messing about earlier, but he got revenge. He got the win, and if Alonso hadn't have done that, he probably would have got pole. Actually, he was really fast that weekend. May have been a different championship outcome. He still got fourth. Massa was down in 13th, so it sort of took him out of the championship contention a little bit doing that. But it was first and second for Lewis and Raikkonen, and Alonso just messing about cost him only 1 or 2 points. But as we know, this championship was only won by a point. So yeah, maybe things could have been really different if he hadn't done that.
Yeah, like I say, in the end, every point does count, and as we talk about later, and it really makes all the difference. There were so many instances through the season that were turning points for either drivers that there. So as you said, Massa, he was unlucky there. There was an error by Ferrari in refueling him, so he didn't manage to get his qualifying lap in time. So he went out in Q2, and then that cost him. He finished down in 13th. So there's many things through the year that happened before all 4 drivers that they'll look back on and think, oh, that cost me a chance, of winning the championship. But yeah, so then in that race itself, Lewis, as you said, went on to win. And then they went on to Turkey now. Turkey is one of my favorite tracks, as I was saying to you. It was really nice to see it back this season. It's really a nice track. And Massa was very dominant in the race day. He took pole from Hamilton. Kimi was 3rd, and Alonso was 4th. And in the race, Hamilton held on to that lead. It was a slow start for Lewis, which allowed Kimi to overtake him. And Alonso also had a slow start, which dropped him down to 6th. And it ended up being a cruise for a Ferrari pair, with Massa winning by 2.5 seconds from Kimi Raikkonen. Alonso was well adrift, 26 seconds behind them in 3rd. And then it was next on to the Italian Grand Prix at the Monza Superpower track. Again, it's one of my favorite tracks. I like the power. I know there's not a lot of corners, but just the whole thrill of it, just all out speed, And McLaren had an advantage there. Their engines must back then have been much more superior because they comfortably won that race. Alonso just took pole from Hamilton by 0.03 of a second. But, he won the race comfortably by 6 seconds from Hamilton, and Kimi was down in 3rd, 27 seconds behind Lewis. So it was a really easy win there for McLaren. And again, Massa, unlucky, had a suspension failure, which, as you were saying, the race before is already bad enough. That DNF he had, he didn't have a DNF that one, he finished in 13th, but this time he had a DNF, so that really put pay to any chances of him in the championship. He went from being 1 point ahead of his teammate to being 5 points behind him in 3rd place, and 23 points behind the championship leader, Lewis. So as I was saying with Massa, like you said at the start as well, that, he's a really good driver, and back then he was supremely good, and he was in the championship hunt until some bad luck he had, which kind of then ruled him out of it. Then they went on to Japan, and this was another chaotic race. So there's a lot of bad weather around. This was a crazy one.
This I think was probably maybe race of the season, actually. Hamilton just showed him how amazing he is on a wet surface. Amazing pole lap, fastest lap, and obviously got the win. So it was mad. I just remember watching that race, thinking how great it was. I think it was on Fuji as well, so it's a different track to what we're seeing nowadays as well. So that was interesting as well. We hadn't had that yet. It's just superior. And actually, this race, he obviously won. Alonso retired, and again, we've said about every point counting. That if he didn't, even if he just picked up 4th or 5th or something, it would have given him a decent result. Raikkonen actually down in 3rd, and then Heikki Kovalainen got 2nd place. And for me, I think this may have been the point where, McLaren had their eyes set on Heikki Kovalainen, maybe to not replace, but to come in for Alonso's leaving. They essentially did a driver swap at the end of the season. Kovalainen was kind of an below average driver, but great result for him. And it was also Coulthard in 4th in the Red Bull, which was a brilliant result for them. Still a young team at that time, but it was also the sort of first incident between Vettel and Webber, where Vettel completely rammed into Mark Webber behind the safety car. And, as we saw, 4 or 5 years later, that relationship didn't get much better. So, maybe that was a sign of things to come. But, it was...
What was it? Multi what? What was the number again?
Multi 21.
Yeah,
Multi 21 set.
that's the one. Multi 21.
Then the front wing incident as well that same season with Webber slamming the glass on the table. Oh, those two. Comedy. That was comedy. But yeah, just what a race again from Hamilton. Complete masterclass in the rain. Controlled it beautifully, controlled it under the safety car beautifully. So yeah, brilliant race for him. I don't want to talk about the next race.
Okay, so at this point now, after that, Lewis was a big favourite. So we're talking about getting the big leads earlier on. And at this point, he had a big lead. So it's 12-point lead now from Alonso and 17 points ahead of Kimi. So there's only 2 races to go now. So at that point, he's looking like a big favourite to win the championship. And we go to the Chinese Grand Prix now. And again, we had chaos. So it's seen that Ferrari have the fastest car. Kimi was topping both practice sessions, all 3 practice sessions, and the first part of qualifying. But Lewis just managed to beat him to pole. So we got Lewis starting on pole now in a race where he can steal the championship. And it all seemed to be going well. However, there was some bad weather about. But as it started the race, the top 4 continued in that order and everything seemed calm. But McLaren decided not to pick Hamilton when Ferrari did. So as we know, that turned out to be a very costly error. It meant that before Hamilton went to pit, Raikkonen had passed him. But that wouldn't have been a problem because even if Hamilton had finished second, it was fine. He would have sealed the championship. But as he went to pit, unfortunately, the tyres were completely gone. He tried to slow it down and take the left-hander to get into the pit. It's quite a steep one there in China, that turn into the pit.
Gravel track, which they don't have anymore. It's tarmac now, isn't it?
Yeah, went straight into the gravel. The marshals tried to get him out. I remember it was chaotic at that point. Like everyone's trying to get him out. The car's not moving, and it ended up being his first DNF of the season. What an unlucky time and really unfortunate situation that was for him. So he has a DNF there now, and then that meant Kimi went on to take the race win. At the end of that race, Alonso was second in that one. So that meant they both really closed the gap right down to him. So now the lead to Alonso was only 4 points and the lead to Kimi Räikkönen was 7 points. Okay, so we now go into that crunch final race of the season and I'll let you go into that one. It was, again, another chaotic race. So much happening.
It was insane. I mean, Massa on pole, he loves Brazil. We'd seen that already the season before, he'd won there, so we knew everyone knew he was going to do well. It was a Ferrari track, obviously suited them, it seemed, but, started out pretty well. You're thinking, Lewis doesn't have to do too much here. He has to, just beat the Ferraris, basically, or be as close to the Ferraris in a high point scoring position as possible. And then he starts dropping back very quickly. It was his gearbox, I think, wasn't it? And it just, just wouldn't go into gear. He was sort of shuddering along, and it was just completely insane. Like, everybody, I remember watching it, just was like, how is this happening? How is this at this moment happening? Bearing in mind what happened in the last race, like, Bono, my tyres are gone. Well, they're actually gone in that race. That's when your tyres are gone, Lewis. To his gearbox sort of breaking for no reason whatsoever. So yeah, it was insane. And then obviously, Raikkonen wins the championship at the same time by 1 point. Massa got second in the race, a bit of team tactics obviously going on there. And Alonso got third. And I don't know if you remember sort of the iconic podium where Alonso is very happy to not only lose the championship, but to not have Hamilton win it. There was a very smug Alonso on the podium. So those are the bits I sort of remember as just sort of being heartbroken for Hamilton, but also sort of being a bit confused by Alonso at the same time. What are your thoughts on this race?
Yeah, so as I say to you, like back then, I've gone to a point where I'm supporting Ferrari because there was no really good British drivers around at the time. Lewis was new, and I was always a big fan of Kimi at McLaren. And when he went to Ferrari, which I say I like the red colour since I was a kid, I always loved him. So I was actually supporting Kimi in that season, So I was actually very happy. I felt gutted for Lewis, but I remember being very happy, and I was because it was very unexpected. It's like that in many sports when things happen unexpectedly. It can make it more enjoyable as well. So, for example, in football, if you score in the 90th minute and You know, you come back like that to win a game. Like, so it was a similar situation there. So I was very happy for Kimi, but I was very sad for Lewis. And Lewis had obviously proved what a great driver he is. And then thereafter, like I wasn't the biggest fan of McLaren. So like only in recent times now, when he went to Mercedes and Ferrari back then, like I say, then Kimi had gone, Alonso took over. So that's when I kind of switched from being following Ferrari and cheering them on to more. Also, Red Bull at that time were very strong around that transition time, you know. So yeah, I was never really a big fan of McLaren. Only when Lewis went to Mercedes did I become a big fan. I've always liked Mercedes too.
Yeah.
You know, it's a car I like, a road car. A road car. When I'm referring to Ferrari and Mercedes, I'm thinking of the road cars. You know, so as a kid growing up seeing that Ferrari, I remember like seeing pictures of that Ferrari sports car. Like, wow, I mean, you see the Mercedes. I remember seeing some of my family members, they had Mercedes and like really cool cars. So McLaren wasn't really a road car. So I didn't really relate to them as a team. So that's what I mean. So at that point, I wasn't supporting Lewis, but I was definitely gutted for him because it's a very unfortunate way to lose. But then the season after, the way he won it was unbelievable. That was heartbreaking for Massa and for Ferrari. So, like, you know, that's the way it goes. That's the way sport is. And Lewis would have learned a lot from that experience. You know, I think it would have definitely made him a lot stronger. And as we've seen, he's gone on to be so successful. And it's nice for Kimi because Kimi, like I say, I've got a soft spot for him. He's a driver I followed a lot. He's a very good driver, I believe. And it's great that he managed to win that world championship for him. And, you know, so I think it was a really good season overall. I think, as you said, Alonso ended up being happy out of that whole situation as well because I think he felt really embarrassed. You know, he shouldn't feel embarrassed because we now know what a good driver Lewis Hamilton is. But at that point, he's thinking, damn, this rookie's come here, right? No one's ever heard of him. And he's like, he's doing better than me. He could go on and win a world championship. He must have been so like worried before the China race, thinking, damn, like my teammate's gonna be, I'm the double world champion. I'm meant to be the number one driver of his team, and this rookie's just come. So you can feel where Alonso was coming from, feeling embarrassed, but he shouldn't be because Lewis Hamilton was for even back then one of the best drivers ever, and now he is definitely, if not, as I said, we debated this a lot. We don't know the different eras, the Senna era. I saw Schumacher.
Top
era.
5 of all time. We'll say it that way. Definitely top 5 of all time.
Alonso,
we'll play it safe.
Yeah, so Alonso would say he's definitely top 10 as well, if not top 5, you know? So
yeah,
Alonso, that was a really amazing era to have them two as teammates. I just wish somehow, some way, Formula One would give us a scenario like that again, where we have two really world-class drivers as teammates in the same car like that. Not really seen it. Rosberg and Hamilton's the closest we've come to it. What's your thought?
Yeah, the 2016, I think, is the nearest we've seen that. I was trying to think, maybe where else you could say, 2016. I was going to try and say Vettel and Webber, but that was so one-sided. Actually, Vettel and Webber.
One season, the one where Webber was leading. Alonso was
2010.
Doing, yeah, do you remember?
Yeah.
And Vettel was the outsider to win that one. They went to Abu Dhabi, you remember? And it was Alonso or Webber that everyone thought would win. But then
Alonso got held up by Petrov, didn't he? He was very unhappy.
It was a difficult track to overtake on, and he got really left. But so that was a shock there as well. Vettel was the third favourite to win at that point. You know, he was third in the Drivers' Championship. So, yeah, that was a good season. But apart from that, you can't say there's been that many close battles the way we've seen in that 2007 season. So definitely, as you're saying to the viewers, definitely go, if you've not seen that season, go check it out, watch some of the races. If you can watch them all, some, obviously, as we know in F1, some races cannot be that good to watch and can be a bit of a procession. But in that season, there was very few that were like that. Nearly every race was incident-packed and competitive, and, you know, we saw really close racing. The big thing that you said earlier when we were talking about the current news that worries me is the news that they might delay the new cars another year.
Yeah, 2023 because of the British lockdown. So I hope they don't, because these cars are boats and it can be boring. Exactly. But, you know, the racing is actually quite good sometimes, especially in the midfield. It's one thing I noticed about this season in particular was you paid attention to the top 4 and then the rest of them was sort of just there. Obviously, if you're a bit of a weirdo like me and you like Super Aguri or you like, you know, a bit of an obscure team, you know, it was all right. But we need a regulation change sooner rather than later. Ready to say goodbye to these cars for me. definitely. But I realise as well, saying a goodbyes, the changes that happened after this season. You know, Force India came in, and look what's happened to them. They're now Aston Martin. You know, we said goodbye to, you know, some sort of big names who've been around. Alexander Wirtz, when Ralf Schumacher, this was his last season, he got replaced by Timo Glock. You know, yeah, it was just a bit mad. You know, Vettel obviously came in full time. Said goodbye to Scott Speed and Liuzzi, obviously backmarker drivers. But yeah, it was a really, really good way to end the season. I think was that race in Brazil, because it sort of set up the next season to make that even better. And I think, yes, 2007 was better than 2008, but 2008 is still one of the best seasons ever. And I think maybe even madder in some ways. That last race, just
Oh my God.
insane.
Yeah, probably have to do a review about that one on one of the upcoming shows. But yeah, so it was really nice to do that review. And like I say to the fans, definitely go check out the highlights of that one. And Ollie, thank you for your time. We'll be doing another show together soon, looking back on one of our seasons, and not too long now to the start of a new season. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. Cannot wait for the new season. Hopefully we'll get to see some new liveries soon as well. Rumour has it that February and March is going to be car reveal season. So hopefully we'll see the new Aston, see what that looks like.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to seeing what that looks like for sure. So yeah, for all our viewers, please remember to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. Bye.